Good evening. It's the evening before the 31-41 biology exam here in 2025. I just thought I would just quickly run over some of the figures we have seen in the biology exam this last two times it was up. Just because I think many people, they read the syllabus and they read the textbook, but sometimes people forget the figures, and the figures can be quite good to know because they contain a lot of information and they quite often have questions that includes figures. So here, very fastly done, I know, just paint and PowerPoint. I just want to show some of the figures from the last exams, so maybe, just maybe, they can give you a little heads up for tomorrow. Okay, so our first example here comes from December 24, and here we have an animal cell and we have a bacterial cell. Okay, so here our job is to look at identifying structures and be aware that some structures may not be present in both cells. These figures we have to compare two cells are very, very common. Usually it's an animal cell and a plant cell, but in this case here they spice it up by throwing in a bacterial cell. And as we might quickly notice, in here our animal cell here is a eukaryote, so we have the DNA in a nucleus, where our bacterial cell here is a prokaryote. So let's look. We have a cell membrane here, and we have a cell membrane here. The bacterial cell membrane is often what cheat people, and they point to the other one instead, but be aware that there are, of course, also a cell wall here, which is on the bacteria, but we won't find on the animal. If it was a plant cell, we'll find it. Cytoplasm are in both here and here, so that will be B, and it will be RH here. Mitochondria is already given. Then nucleus we can only find in the animal cell as a eukaryote. And our plasmid is the circular part of DNA we find here. So our answer here would be E. And then we have to state what mitochondria do, and that's energy production. Or we can say respiration. Okay. This figure is from the same year and same paper, and here they ask us about the function of a different part of the leaf. But what's interesting here is these kind of figures of cross-section of a leaf is very normal, and it's a very good thing to be able to name the different structures here. So here we have the spongy mesophyll. Here we have the stromata. Here we have the guard cell. And in here we have the air spaces. Little note here, I had quite a few students who are this one and this one here, got them confused, so they switched them around. So please be aware that where the arrow actually points, so you won't get confused here. Our next diagram here is also from the same year, and here we have a diagram of the human reproductive organ. If you have your book, this is also the same as 15.5 in the Cambridge book. And we ask, where is the sperm produced? It's here in U, which is the testis. Then where we place the sperm into the vagina, they can either be T, the urethra, or S the penis. Carries urine out the body, that can only be T, the urethra. And holds the testicles outside the body, that can only be R, the scrotum. So again here, it's important to know the names of these structures, and it's also important to know their function. Now, they just place them here, but it's just for the fun of it. Here we have, up here, we have P is our sperm duct, and our Q here is our prostate gland. Just so we can learn to name everything up here. And up here, we have our bladder. Okay. This is also from the same test. And here we show part of the human gas exchange system. And we are asked to identify the trouble up here, F and G. And F here is the larynx. And this one here, G, actually confused quite a few students because they started talking about the alveoli, but we're actually pointing at the capillary here. If you look at your book, this is actually the same as figure 11.3 and 11.5. So again, these are some pretty good figures to look at. This is from paper 33 from the same year. And here we're looking at the figures from chapter 3 in the book. And this one here is pretty much figure 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 we're looking at. And what we see here is diffusion from the outside of a cell to the inside of a cell. We have a higher concentration and a lower concentration, so we'll have a concentration gradient. How could you answer that? Well, I'll say that there's more oxygen on the outside compared to the inside, then diffusion occurs as molecule moves from high to low concentration or down the concentration gradient. So these figures here, this one and this for osmosis and for active transport in chapter 3 are also a few good figures to look at. This one here, again, we look at reproduction in humans, but unlike the male organs, we are now looking at the female organs. And here they ask about site of fertilization, and this will be here, F. In the uterus lining, and site of implantation is G, and where eggs are developed is here C, in our ovary. So let's just recap the names here. We have our ovaries up here. We have our oviduct duct up here, or fallopian tubes. We have our uterus wall. We have our cervix, and we have our vagina. Again, this figure here is the same as 15.3 in your book, and it's a good one to just work a little with. This next one here looks at the human digestive system, and this is the same as figure 7.8 in your book, and they ask about to state the names of the organ X and Y. And that's X is the small intestine or the ileum, and Y is the large intestine and the colon. So looking at the figures in chapter 7 can also be quite a good idea here. This is from the 41 from this year, the extended one. And here we look at a picture of a leaf. We don't have just a drawing anymore, but we are looking at a picture of the leaf, and we have to identify parts of the leaf. This again looks a lot like image 6.12 in your book. So they ask us how to identify where gas exchange is controlled, most photos occur, and where the spongy mesophyll are found. So gas exchange is controlled in L. That's where we have the openings. Most of the photosynthesis occurs up in M, up in the palisade mesophyll, and further down we can see the spongy mesophyll. Again, so be aware that it's not just the diagrams you need to look at, but also the picture in the book. This is here again from 42, from that year, also extended, where we have to look at the structure of an organism, chlorella, an algae, and then we have to identify structures that indicate it's not a prokaryote. So, again, well, if it is a prokaryote, it wouldn't have the nucleus. And we can see right here, we can see our nucleus. And up here, we can see our chloroplasts. And both of them would not be in a prokaryote. These are things we only find in eukaryotes. This one is also from extended from this year, and here they look at sexual reproduction in flowering plants. And this figure here is the same as figure 14.6 in your book. Now, they just want you to state the function of the parts labeled here, but we're going to look at some of the names too as well. And X up here is where we have the ovule, which forms a seed, and Y here, which is part of the protection here. But in general, we should know that up here we have the stigma. Let's see if we draw a little here. I have the stigma up here, and I have my style here, and then I have my ovary here. And then up here we have our here we have the flower stalk. So, and down here we have the receptacle. This here is from June 2024, 31. And here we have to look at the entire human digestive system. And they start by asking us where the gallbladder is. And up here, we see this small thing here. That's our gallbladder. And then amylase. Well, amylase is up here in the top of our system. So we find the amylase here. Digestion is when the stuff leaves the body. So that will be here at F. Most absorption, this will be here in the intestine here, G. And the physical digestion, well, most of it is, of course, a little bit elsewhere, but most of it happens here in the stomach. And the stomach is also where the pH is acidic. This was a core version of the question. In an extended version, they probably will also want more names. This one here is a diagram of a human tooth. This is a part of 7.3 digestion chapter that people sometimes forget is a part there, but we have to state the names here labeled in our human tooth. And up here in A, we have the enamel, the hard part. Then we have the dentine here. Here, this could both answer. Here could be the pulp or the nerves. And down here, we have the cement, which attaches the thing to the jawbone. So here's a question from the core exam, also from June 2024, which looks at our kidney and excretion system. And this one is basically the same as figure 13.2 in our book. Well, again, here we just have to state. So if we have to state the letter of the structure that excretes excess water, well, that is our kidney here, A, here. Then we have our urethra here, D. The structure here in C, that's our bladder. And last but not least, down here, they ask what's that? The vein, and that's the renal vein. So this is one of the more easy structures I ever seen about the kidney. It's also an extended, a core question, and usually extended they'll be harder. But it's good to know the figures in 13.1 excretion. Here we have also from 33 that year, a drawing of the human heart. And these are quite common, and there's a lot of structure here. This is in the core. So let's have a look here. Up here, we have the pulmonary. This is our pulmonary artery. In here, we have our vena cava, blood running in from the body. Up here, we have our right atrium, and then we go down here. We have the valves, and then here we go down until our right ventricle. Here we have our septum separating. Here we have the wall of the left ventricle. Then we have the left ventricle here and here, and we have the left atrium here. And in here, running from the lungs, we have the pulmonary vein. Again, this structure here, which is in the book, is figure 9.4, is one of the figures with the most names on it. So if you're going to look at just one figure, this might be the one you want to look at. Here we see a slightly more complicated version of the circulatory system question. This is from paper 41 in June. And here they look at a circulatory of a fish and the circulatory of an amphibian. And they ask us to describe the similarities and the differences between the circulatory systems of a fish and an amphibian. This is actually not that easy. But there are some things in it. Well, both of them have a heart. Here we have the heart of the fish, and here we have the heart of our amphibian here. And they both have a heart with, like, there's one main ventricle. And again, in here you just have, you see it here, you see it here. And there is not a visible septum like you see in the mammalian heart. So we're missing the septum here. Both have valves in their heart here, but there is no visible separation between the oxygen and deoxygenated blood the same way you see in a mammalian heart. Also, the fish up here, they have gills, and the amphibian have lungs and scaled capillaries. Fish, they have a two-chambered heart, 1, 2, while the amphibian have a 1, 2, 3-chambered heart. And this here is a single circulatory system. This is a double circulatory system, where you have just one loop. You go from the gills and you go to the body, where here you go from the body to the heart, to the lung, and back to the heart, and then out to the body. Here we see a question from Also the 41 paper, the extended paper, where they show a cross-section through the human skin. And again here, they label a lot of things that they don't ask about. The names ask about the functions here. I just want to show it to show how they can do something here from chapter 13. So this here is the same as figure 13.13 in your book, which is the structure of human skin. If you see here A, this is a sweat gland here. Up here we have some temperature receptors. C down here is a nerve that is running up here to a sensory neuron up here. D here is my fatty cells under the skin. E up here, that is the hair erector muscle that is able to move the hair. And F is my hair. It's more rare we see these here, but they are here sometimes. So again, it's another figure that you might want to pay attention to. Okay, this one here is the structure of the human eye, and this is figure 12.10 in the book. If there is a lot of information on the figure of the heart, the one here of the human eye is pretty close to it. So there are many structures we need to know what doing here. So we have here this our ciliary. This is a suspensory ligament here. Here in J we have our iris. H here we have our cornea. G we have our pupil. F here is our lens. E here is our ciliary muscle. A is our retina. B here is a blind spot. And C and D here is where the signal goes in here into the optical nerve. So again, figure 12.10. If that comes up, that's a lot of names and a lot of definitions to learn. So it's a good idea to look at it.